Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, so I've looked into HANSEMI already. I've done my video talking about her and how much of an amazing character that she is. Overall, kit, fantastic, wind, elevation, loving it. Just a really good support character to have, right? Again, big fan, big fan. They done well on this one. Happy, happy, happy. Now, if you go over to the codex, we actually do have info on Go. It seems that they have decided on how they want to go with Go. Obviously, because now he's in the game, I don't think they're going to change him since he's here right now and we have all of his information, of course. So I just kind of want to go over it and then we'll kind of give our final thoughts on whether or not if he's actually really worth investing into. Because obviously we've got two characters dropping a week apart, so a lot of people are kind of like, what do I do? Do I go for HANSEMI? Do I go for Go? Even though we're getting a free copy of Go, maybe Go's initial kit is well enough to continue going forward. So yeah, pretty much going with the weapon first things first, so you get a defense increase of 10%, and then skill 1, where is it? When skill 1 hits, it increases the light damage dealt to targets by 10%, and then, yeah, okay, cool. So that's pretty much the weapon itself, pretty standard. Okay, so let's go on with the kit. Let's kind of talk about on what we're working with. So the kit all around is given weak break. And I know a lot of people hate that, a lot of people are upset about that because it's just like, what the frick is going on? And I'll get to why they've done what they've done, and I'll show you guys why that even though it's weak break, he's still going to be a great breaker. When it comes to the support skill, he's got medium break and he provides the buff of aura of brilliant light. So Sun Jin Woo will get a defense increase of 10%, a shield equal to 10% of Sun Jin Woo's defense, and then the user's light damage increased by 10%. So I guess if you're going against a light raid and you need that breakage, then this is just a bit of a additional benefit, of course. So yeah, QTE skill, medium break again. The ultimate doesn't have any type of breakage. I will say because he's a tank character and he's scaling off defense, his percentages are going to be really, really high. So there's that. And then now let's get over to the passive. So this is where it kind of gets down and dirty. So the broken vessel effect applies when you enter the stage, right? When the user uses Clean Sweep or Fighting Spirit, which is skill 1 and I think the QTE skill, yeah, and the QTE skill, it applies the ruler effect. The ruler effect increases the user's defense by 30% and the user gains a shield equal to 20% of GUN-HEE's defense. So pretty much QTE and skill 1 makes it so that he becomes a little better tank and he can eat a lot of hits, right? Defense up, shield going, you gotta love it. When the user uses Power of Brilliant Light, which is the second skill, right? It applies the Fragment of Brilliant Light, which pretty much activates the user's core attack one time. The user's core attack becomes Heavy Attack Abdominal Crush, and their damage increases by 30%. Fighting Spirit becomes Heavy Fighting Spirit and increases the user's damage by 30%. So once you activate the second skill, you then unlock the offensiveness of GUN-HEE. So QTE skill 1, defense, skill 2, offense. That's the buffs. Broken Vessel is the minute you enter the stage, your HP recovery rate is reduced by 50%, which is actually a good thing because before originally you weren't able to get any type of healing. There was no healing being provided. So they've just made it so that they've decreased it by half. So he's going to be getting a little amount rather than nothing. So that's actually a low-key a bit of a buff. So we'll take that. That right there is the initial kit for Go. When we get our free copy of Go, this is what we're working with, right? Which isn't too bad, I'll admit, but it's nothing too crazy because even seeing what I'm seeing, I would still cater to using GUN-HEE 100%, right? He's got more breakage, his damage output will be, well, I mean, it's going to be somewhat decent, but the breakage is there. He's got the defense decrease. I mean, some of you guys might have dupes onto him to furthermore cater to it all. He's got the break effectiveness by 20% on the skill 2, and the reason why I'm mentioning that is because this is where Go's break actually comes into play, because his break percentage difference from him and other breakers really comes into effect to make him a better breaker once you get his A2. This is where he comes to shine. So obviously by seeing a weak break, it's like, oh, trash, boring, other characters have more breakage. The developers made it so that it's kind of at A2 where the weak break may sound bad, but with the 20% effectiveness of breakage, it's actually really solid. So going in for A1, When the users, when the user uses Fighting Spirit or Heavy Attack in Fighting Spirit, it activates their core attack. When the user uses Fighting Spirit or Heavy Attack in Fighting Spirit, their core attack becomes Heavy Attack Abdominal Crush for 15 seconds. When the user uses Power of Brilliant Light, it applies the Will of Brilliant Light. So for each light team member in the party, the user's light damage increases by 5% and their critical hit damage increases by 5%. So all in all, that's a 15% increase in the light damage and the critical hit damage, of course. So that second half is very nice for the light team, for Chai Yen, for Go himself also, because again, once that second skill is in effect, that's allowing you to do more damage. This is just solid across the board, just allowing you to do more damage overall, especially with that core damage too. So I can see the damage output from Go being somewhat decent, especially with the buffs that he applies himself. So that's actually pretty solid for an A1 to cater straight off to the offensiveness. I would kind of would have preferred for that to support more for the breakage, but it requires you to go furthermore if you really want to support the break for Go, and this is where I would say is where we need to be at. So A2 break effectiveness 20%. That's where I'm going to be shooting for. That's where I'm going to have to shoot for if I want to make this man the main breakage. If not, I would say suggest using Yun-Hee. That's it, simple as. Going furthermore on, again, A3, Almighty Break on the ultimate. You also get the Ruler's Aura enhanced, which basically makes it so that you can, so the user's damage taken decreased by 20%. They just added that additional. They didn't bother buffing up the defense or the shield amount, so bit of a missed opportunity, but it is. So if you want to maximize on the breakage, it's A2 to A3. Alright, and then defense increase on A4, and then A5 furthermore supports him in the DPS region. So the damage of Supernova increases by 30% when damage dealt to targets that possess a break gauge. So keep in mind, Almighty Break, Supernova plus 30%, that ultimate is going to slap. When the Supernova hits the target that doesn't have a break gauge, it grants the Will of Fragment. So it basically covers your ass in terms of if there's a break gauge, if there isn't. Because if there is a break gauge, they're getting slapped. If there isn't a break gauge, they're getting slapped, because you're getting an increase in critical hit damage by 30% and your QTE damage output is going up by 100%, which makes sense because the QTE percentage wise was pretty low, 840 capping at 1260. Okay, so that makes sense. So that is pretty much GUN-HEE in a nutshell. Is he coming across as an Arise Festival character? On paper, not so much. I will say, because of all the breakage and the weak breakage and the medium breakage that he has, I know that a lot of people are upset about that. Once you get the A2, you'll see the difference. Almighty Break is there. He's the first ever hunter to have that. So his ultimate from A3 to A5 is going to be slapping. But pretty much, long story short, what the developers have done is, if you want to get the best of Go, it requires the dupes. I would say shoot for A2 at bare minimum. But his initial kit just doesn't sound Arise Festival worthy, in my opinion. So with all that being said, I would suggest, going for your HANSEMI. Because in all honesty, if you have a Yun-Hee that's been juiced up, worked on, duped out, you can resort to continuously using this man. Because they just recently did a small little buff on him, which isn't too bad. Even if you have him at A2, you do get the break effectiveness of 20% alongside having heavy break, medium break. I'm sorry, if it's the breakage and the defense decrease that you need, Yun-Hee will do just as fine. So it's very strange on the strategy that developers decided to go with by doing this to Go. I'm not too sure why they did that, knowing that we've got Yun-Hee, who's a very good, solid, light tank. Yeah, a very questionable route on why they did what they did. But yeah, if you want to know, I mean, Go's kit mid passive is where he gets stuck. Well, that's when he starts to get broken. If you choose to go for HANSEMI and just kind of stick with your free copy of Go, that's fine. Yun-Hee will be just as fine if you have him. But yeah, if you wanted to, you can go for one copy of HANSEMI, and then for Go, you can go for the 2 copies to get that 20% break effectiveness if you choose to. That's one route of going about it, but yeah, it's kind of questionable on what they did by making his kit mid and then his passive is where things are. Because if you look at every other character, their kit are just fantastic, right? Solid right at the beginning, and then the dupes just make them even better. Go, on the other hand, needs its dupes, in my opinion. So questionable. But that's kind of like my thoughts on things and how I would say you should go about doing it. I still stick with saying go for HANSEMI, because I mean, he's still kicking ass. he's still kicking ass, and Hansemi is elevating the win, because light team low-key with Yonho is fine, and because we're getting a free copy of Go, I mean, it is what it is. I just feel like with completing your wind element and having that full support going on, I think that's going to be more important. But if you are looking for Go, and if you are still hell-bent on summoning for him, or if you choose to summon for him and you don't know what you should go for, A2 is your bare minimum to hit.